So how's everybody doing? It's Hank back with another Two Birds and a Third short discussion. This is the first annual Philadelphia Eagles player evaluation video that I have decided to make, which I've decided to kind of make it as a bit of a series on the channel and on the podcast. And if anyone decides to go along with me for the podcast, and if anyone has any feedback or comments, I'm ready to read them. So what I decided to do is I decided to take every single position that currently resides on the Philadelphia Eagles and evaluate the players in those positions in order to grade the team by grading the players. So what I'm going to do is I am going to grade the starters more difficultly than I would grade a backup. That's why you might see some lack of consistency in the grading scale. But let's get going. Let's go with the quarterback position, the most important position on the offense. If you don't have a good quarterback, then you're no good. Okay, if you have a good quarterback, you might be good for 5 to 10 years. You might be set. These are your Tom Brady's, your Aaron Rodgers, possibly your Eli Mannings, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger. Have at it. So first and foremost, the starter of the Philadelphia Eagles, the possible savior, happens to be Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was drafted the second overall pick in the 2016 NFL Draft from North Dakota State University, an FCS school. A lot of people didn't really know how he would translate to the NFL, how his FCS experience would translate to the NFL. North Dakota State University, powerhouse in FCS football. Carson Wentz, I believe, went to two, national championships, they call it, FCS championships. Didn't play as much during his senior season, suffered an arm injury, came back and played the championship game, and he went to the Philadelphia Eagles. Everybody thought that the Eagles would be redshirting Carson Wentz, but that is not something that ended up happening. I personally didn't really care what happened in the position. The Eagles had Sam Bradford, who happened to be the obvious starter. Sam Bradford had a very good preseason. Both players had very good OTAs, training camps, mini camps, stuff like that. But Carson Wentz happened to crack a rib against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everyone thought that would sideline him through the rest of the season as he'd be redshirted. But unfortunately, Teddy Bridgewater, the quarterback from the Minnesota Vikings, got injured in non-contact play, and in that way, the Eagles decided to trade Sam Bradford to the Minnesota Vikings for a first-round pick and I believe a third or fourth-round pick in the 2018 NFL season. And Carson Wentz ended up starting against the Cleveland Browns in the first game of the NFL season. He started all throughout all 16 games of the NFL season. He played just about every snap, I believe, like 99% of the snaps. And he beat the Browns, he beat the Bears. Signature win against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where I believe he threw for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the Eagles beat the Steelers 34-3. Blowout win. But then once Lane Johnson, right tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles, got suspended, the wheels fell off the wagon, and at the end of the day, the Eagles ended up with a 7-9 record from, week 4 to week 17. The Eagles only won 4 games, including 2 division games against the New York Football Giants and the Dallas Cowboys, both at home. Now I'm going to discuss the strengths and weaknesses of Carson Wentz. I'm first of all going to discuss the strengths of Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has one of the biggest arms in the National Football League. A lot of people criticize him for him throwing shallow mostly, but if you look at the stat sheet, I believe it's 720 total yards for over 20-yard passes, which he led all rookies in. I believe personally that this is a very overrated stat. It kind of reminds me of the sack stat, where in fact if you have, a defense with a lot of sacks, that doesn't necessarily make you the best defense. I am a personal believer in intermediate passes, intermediate completions, getting the completion percentage up. If you just throw deep on every play, sure, you'll get a lot of touchdowns and completions, but football's also a chess match. You play this chess match like a Tom Brady, like an Aaron Rodgers, and you'll be set right there, and you'll be able to, slowly go down the field and score touchdowns, and that'll hurt my feeling is that'll hurt a defense more than just long, deep passes on every play. Not to mention, Carson Wentz has amazing mobility. Not just pocket mobility, but field mobility. Everyone remembers how he played against the New York Giants in Week 16, where the defenders were coming at him. He kind of turned and twisted out of a sack and ended up running for a first down. Really one of the biggest Michael Vick-like plays that I've ever seen. And it was like deja vu because Michael Vick once did that against the New York Giants. Miracle at the Meadowlands Part 3, I believe. The Miracle at the New Meadowlands. But those are the real strengths of Carson Wentz, as well as being a team leader, a guy that the offense can get around. The offense definitely believes in him, and that's my feeling. Now, Carson Wentz's biggest weaknesses. Carson Wentz's biggest weaknesses are the fact that... Sorry about that. Carson Wentz's biggest weaknesses are the fact that he lacks the footwork to be the quarterback that many thought he would be last season. My dog's playing with a toy. But that was really something that really pissed me off and probably pissed off a lot of other Philadelphia Eagles fans. Not to mention his throwing motion needed a lot of work. Not to mention he really struggled forcing the ball to Zach Ertz. And that's where he got a lot of his interceptions, forcing balls to Zach Ertz, because you have situations, right? You have situations where you have a tight end seam route and you can drop it into the tight end. But unfortunately, the Philadelphia Eagles receivers weren't the best receivers in the league, right? So there were times in which the defense didn't respect the receivers, and if Zach Ertz is one of the better tight ends on the team, it is easy to drop the ball into him and then cover him. If you cover him with a linebacker, if you cover him with the safety, in nickel defenses, it should be easy to give the ball to a tight end if you have respectable receivers, but the Eagles did not have that. You can cover him with a linebacker and you can spy him with a safety. Carson Wentz tried 2 or 3 times to kind of drop it in to Zach Ertz, but he failed. And I think he forced it to Zach Ertz 4 times, which led to interceptions. Now, again, you look at his interception stat, 16 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, I believe 2 rushing touchdowns, and 2 fumbles. I could be wrong there. But in that situation, you're looking at it, and I think he would have had more touchdowns had he had better receivers, because I think he threw 5 or 6 passes to wide receivers in the end zone that should have been caught, but were not caught. So that touchdown stat is very misleading. Obviously, the Eagles have better qualified wide receivers right now, so I don't think that would be as much of an issue for them or himself, as he will probably have more trust in his wide receivers. But again, I think that Carson Wentz can make a step up from next season. But if I were to rank him on a 0 to 10 scale, I would give Carson Wentz an 8 out of 10, especially for his rookie season and from what he's able to progress on towards next season. Just because last season I thought that him with the reins, I thought the Eagles were going to be a 4-12 team. They ended up being a 7-9 football team. They ended up being much better than I even thought they were going to be. But again, I'm grading him a little bit harsher than I might grade another backup quarterback, just because he is the starting quarterback and he is forced to do things that the backup quarterback isn't going to have to do. So I give him an 8 out of 10. I think that's a generous 8 out of 10. I think most people would give him a 7 out of 10, but because he was a rookie last season, I would give him that 8 out of 10, and I think that 8 out of 10 will help him build on the confidence for next season. So the next quarterback happens to be Nick Foles. Now Nick Foles is, right now a backup quarterback. He's been a backup quarterback for the last 2.5 seasons. But Nick Foles was brought into the Philadelphia Eagles by the Andy Reid era, the back half, or the back year of the Andy Reid era, and really under the man who I will not name, who I should not name, who I could not name because he is an awful person. He ended up having 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in the 2013 NFL season, brought the Eagles to a 10-6 record, NFC East division title, but was unable to do anything with that. And I think that in 2013 and 2014, overall, I think he had something along the lines of 15 wins and 4 losses, maybe 14 wins and 4 losses, which in 2 seasons, that's pretty amazing from a guy who was supposed to be a career backup. But he was traded for Sam Bradford in the 2015 offseason, went to St. Louis, which is now LA, but he played for the St. Louis Rams under Jeff Fisher, and Jeff Fisher, he doesn't care about quarterbacks, and Nick Foles didn't do very well with the St. Louis Rams that year, and he was made a backup quarterback, went to the Kansas City Chiefs, ended up winning 2 games because he's amazing. Ended up winning 2 games in reserve for Alex Smith due to injury, and he comes to the Philadelphia Eagles as a backup quarterback, one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. I see in the league where you have Ryan Fitzpatrick and you have Mike Glennon as starters, I'm thinking to myself, why can't Nick Foles be a starter? It doesn't make any sense to me. But people have told me that once you lose your starting position, it's hard to get it back on another team because it's a what have you done for me now league. Nick Foles brings leadership. Nick Foles actually has decent footwork. He has a good arm in the sense that he can throw the ball deep. The issue is his field mobility and his ball velocity. He's got great pocket mobility, which is a big difference between field mobility. Field mobility means that you can run fast anywhere and nobody can catch you. Pocket mobility actually means that you have good mobility in the pocket, that you have good footwork in the pocket. And that's what Nick Foles brings. Look, if Carson Wentz were to lead the field, I don't think that the Eagles would be missing a step at all with Nick Foles. And that's kind of tough to say because you don't want your starting quarterback to be just as good as your backup quarterback. That's what leads to quarterback controversies, and Eagles fans all know about quarterback controversies. But at the end of the day, I would give Nick Foles, because I'm not grading backup quarterbacks as difficultly as I'm evaluating starting quarterbacks. I'm going to give Nick Foles a 9 out of 10 because he's shown he can play at a great level. But now he's at the backup quarterback position. Now I have full trust in Nick Foles to lead the team if, for whatever terrible reason, that Carson Wentz would have to lead the field. So I would give Nick Foles a 9 out of 10. Now I'm going to go to the number 3 quarterback, which happens to be Matt McGloin. I don't know very much about Matt McGloin. I don't really see anything good about Matt McGloin. Matt McGloin might not even be a part of the team. I'm a fond believer that you carry 2 quarterbacks on your football team. I've seen Matt McGloin play. I haven't been impressed with Matt McGloin's play. Matt McGloin played last year in reserve for Derek Carr and lost against the Denver Broncos. Got injured during the Denver Broncos, was out for the season, but the number 3 quarterback, I think his last name was Cook from Michigan State. I think he played just as well as Matt McGloin. I'm, again, not very impressed with him. Haven't really seen that much from him. And he's a career backup / journeyman quarterback for his whole career. Saw him play in that 2013 Raiders-Eagles game in reserve for Terrell Pryor, but again, wasn't very impressed with what he had to show, and I don't really expect that much from the guy anyway. So that is all for my Philadelphia Eagles position evaluation for the quarterback position. I'm planning on doing this for all the positions. I know my dog in the background was squeaking. I'm currently clasping his squeak toy between my feet, but I'm actually planning on doing some like overlays for this in terms of, highlights, so that this can be more interactive and better seeing than just listening to some guy talk. I want this to actually be exciting for the fans watching. So I hope that everyone has enjoyed this player evaluation for the quarterback position. I will be doing one for the running back position hopefully soon. I've been talking for a while, for almost 15 minutes, so that's been pretty good. So anyway, if you like this video, I guess give me a like, give me a comment, subscribe to the channel if you want to. And I will be back within the week with more evaluations, and hopefully the podcast will be back within the week with more content. Peace.